I can tell you that if you look at down there.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get started, but okay. Sorry. I'm just trying to get you back to where you
This
were.
isn't,
Working all right?
no.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get it back. Okay, so I'll click it twice to make it go.
But on anything or down the
Yeah,
bottom?
if you want to go to the next slide, I think you just click it twice. I'll try
Just
it.
dance back and forth a little bit. It'll be all right.
Yeah, I think it should work.
Okay, I think we'll get started. All right, you get your attention just for a minute. I'm Tina McCoy. I'm the superintendent of schools here in the Raymond School District. I'm really glad that all of you could come this evening. Some of you from Raymond, some of you from other places, but regardless of where you are from, it's been a really important public health issue. So thank you for being here tonight and showing your interest. I want to introduce a couple of people that are important. One is Kim Coronis of Breeze, New Hampshire, and she's going to be our presenter this evening. She
Hi.
educate folks on a variety of issues related to health, and especially respiratory health and care
Yes.
that I think people need to be educated about. And it seems benign and it kind of flies under the radar, but
I think you'll see that her presentation is extremely valuable for anyone, parents, students, anyone at all. And we also have Kathy Polyat from Raymond Coalition for Youth. She has some materials set up here as well. Raymond Coalition for Youth is such an important organization in our community. That it's a cross-section of a lot of different people, but they're all working to help youth in a variety of ways with substance abuse issues, just prevention, mental health, and all kinds of things. So I'd also like to acknowledge Kevin and Jill from RCTV, because we're going to videotape this so that we can play it again, and others who weren't able to come tonight can still watch it and benefit from the materials. So again, thank you for coming, and without further ado, I'll just pass it over to Kim. Still not working? I'll be your clerk. I will just sit over here and do that. Here.
So thank you again for your time tonight. There is a survey on the tables. If you didn't see one, you can grab one now. Basically, it's questions prior to the presentation and questions after, just to see if your knowledge or information base changes. And then also there's room on the back. You can do it anonymously, but if you have suggestions or other questions, if you have questions and want more information, then we suggest you leave us an email or a contact phone number. But that's what the survey portion is. And you folks, you young people, students, if you want to take time to do the survey, that would really help me out, if you don't mind. So we're a nonprofit organization. We're 100 years old. We're based in Manchester, New Hampshire, and we're state specific, so we don't go outside of New Hampshire. Our focus is lung health and improving the quality of life for people that have lung health issues. Some of the things that we work on are chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, also known as COPD, asthma, environmental issues. For example, we have a Bag the Butts project where we actually physically pick up trash and cigarette butts because of the impact of cigarette litter on the environment. And we also do educational programs, tobacco use prevention, and things like Vaping Unveiled, like this program this evening. So recently we had an opportunity, people may have heard that CVS Health, a division of CVS, has an initiative for in the next 5 years to create a tobacco-free generation. So we applied for some funding through them, and we were able to get funding for this program. I'm not going to play the videos, basically because of the time it will take and also just the logistics here. But if you're interested, the video on the left is about 3.5 minutes, and it's called Real Teens Talk Vaping. You can find it if you Google on YouTube. It was done by a youth coalition in California, and it was done by the kids in that program to educate their parents. The videos on the right are new, brand new last week, and that's the FDA released those, and there's a series of 7 or 8 videos that are 15 seconds. The longest one is 31 seconds, and they are all about vaping, but taking different pieces of information and highlighting them in the very short YouTube videos. So, this is some of the things we're gonna, yes?
When the night's over, can you post the titles of those
Yeah.
again on the page?
Sure,
So we can-
yeah. Yeah, and I meant to say too, I'm gonna kind of rush through the slides to allow time for questions at the end, but I can definitely give you the links, and I can also share them with Superintendent McCoy so they could post them, and then also Kathy at the Raymond Coalition. But I apologize, they're resources, but it's hard to go through them all in one evening and not keep you here too long. So we're going to cover the history of e-cigarettes a little bit, some of the health concerns. Vaping by the numbers is some of the information specific to New Hampshire and the U.S., and then popular products that are in use by teens and young adults, and then some of the policies that apply to these products here in New Hampshire. So the product initially started, e-cigarettes began back in 2003, and it was a product that was designed in China, and it was done by a pharmacist who was trying to help his father quit smoking. So initially the product was meant to decrease the smoking that his father was doing of combustible traditional products. So when e-cigarettes came on the market in this country in 2007, they had a very different look to them. They actually looked like a real cigarette. So it was interesting, as you'll see over time, how things have changed. So this is one of the first e-cigarettes that was gift boxed this way and packaged. So we bought that in 2009, and it cost about $130. So after they were imported here in this country in 2007, shortly after that, the World Health Organization declared that they were not a proper smoking cessation tool, and that still stands. So for us in this country, there's been a lot of changes over time, and sorry, I'm moving around a lot, but I can't stand still and I can't see. Basically, for us here in New Hampshire, we initiated legislation in our own state. We didn't wait for the federal government, and in 2010, we became one of the first states in the country to have legislation specific to youth use and youth purchase of these devices. So the existing legislation back then was you can't be under 18, just like traditional tobacco products. You must be 18 or over to purchase e-cigarettes, e-liquid, or e-devices. So recently you've heard a lot in the news about different regulations. The FDA classified all of these products as tobacco products back in 2016. The unfortunate part of this, what's occurred since then, is there's been a lot of lawsuits and countersuits. So the regulations do exist, they are on file, they are in effect, but enforcement of the policies is very difficult because of all the counter lawsuits that are filed in court. And as recently as 2017, one senator requested a review of all the proposed regulations and wanted them thrown out. They are still on the books as of right now. And then in August of this year, supposedly as an extension and as a warning, there's supposed to be what they call nicotine addictiveness warning labels on all the e-juices, e-liquids, and e-salts to let the person that purchases them know that there are some unknown results potentially from using these products. And then just as recently as April, the FDA announced that they have a specific program for youth tobacco prevention, and it's also designated specifically to the use of the Juul device and other devices. And then just more recently, this month, there were a lot of warnings that went out in those series of videos that I mentioned that the FDA produced. That was in as a result of all the use of devices by young people, meaning under 18. So basically what all these products have in common, they are a battery-operated device. They turn nicotine, flavorings, and other chemicals into an aerosol vapor. It's not a water vapor. They're also known, old-fashioned terminology was electronic nicotine delivery system, or ENDS. And now you hear the terms e-cigs, vapes, vape pens, or Juuls. They actually use a brand name when they're talking about the products. They can look like a traditional regular cigarette, like the older one version that we showed you. They can look like USB drives. They can look like pens. They can look like lipstick. There's a line of products out there that resemble cosmetics. And you're inhaling a vapor. You're not smoking, but they call it vaping or vape. And then they are being promoted as safer than regular cigarettes, but we don't know the long-term effects. So for public health people, we say potentially less harmful, but honestly, no one knows. It took 20, 30, or 40 years to actually figure out the full impact of smoking traditional cigarettes, so it's going to be a while before we know the full impact of using these devices. And again, they came on the market here in this country in 2007. Right now, there's over 450 device brands and over 15,000 flavors. So that's where it's hard to tell what you're getting, is because of all the chemical mixtures. So again, that just kind of summarizes the different components of an e-cigarette device or a vape pen. And these are just some pictures so you can see the difference over time. So you went from initially looking like a traditional cigarette, both in size and shape. A few years later, you had what in the middle slide is a tank, or the mod systems. Those are things you can buy parts for. You can change the mouthpieces. You can change the size of the tank. So that means the battery can be a different size, which means the temperature of the unit can be higher or lower. The devices in the middle used to go from anywhere from $75 to $350 because you could pick the metals you wanted them made out of, and you could change the mouthpiece, so you were creating a higher end component. And then on the far right are the devices that are more popular right now. The Soren is the teardrop shaped one, and then Juul is the one on the far right, and that seems to be what is popular with younger people right now. So again, just to show you the different sizes, and the image on the left is actually a vape pen system that is being charged through a cell phone. And then the images on the right, the second item in is a traditional size cigarette, and then the other things next to it are all electronic nicotine delivery systems, including what is an e-cigar. The thing that looks like a cigar is actually an electronic cigar. So again, this is just a summary of the different things and how they've changed over time. Again, keeping in mind we went from something that was the size and shape of a traditional cigarette to all these other devices. So some of the vocabulary that's resulted from this is just vaping. The slang term is using these devices, or an e-cigarette or a similar device. The mods are, again, the modifiable units. And that's when you have a removable battery and potentially can get a different heating element. Cloud chasing is something that has resulted from people sharing videos on social media. There's actually contests to see what kind of images you can create with the vapor cloud. And dripping is something that public health organizations are trying to alert people to. That's when you can take apart some of these devices, even if they weren't meant to be removable pieces, and people are putting other substances over the heated coils and inhaling the vapor directly, not through the mouthpiece. Something that's happened lately is there was information on YouTube about the Tide Pod Challenge, and people were eating Tide Pods. There's also videos out there of people cutting open Tide Pods and holding the contents of the Tide Pods over a heated coil and inhaling that vapor. And then the juices, or the substances that go in the devices, the liquids, are called e-juices, and they come in a variety of packaging. They come in a variety of nicotine strengths, and some are actually advertised as no nicotine, but there's trace amounts of nicotine in them. So again, just because of the variety, no one is sure what they're getting when they're buying this stuff. We just talked about some of the things that can be vaped, whether it's legal, illegal. There's a bunch of things out there that are happening right now. Another thing that's come on the market is something called the nicotine salt, but it's actually a liquid form. The difference being that the company Juul actually created their own formula, and the content of nicotine is very strong. It's the strongest out there. And by developing this nicotine salt formula, you can get a much stronger nicotine dose in their little flavor pods than you can when you buy the other e-liquids. Again, just the variety of substances, the variety of companies out there. There's no consistency as to what you're purchasing because there's just too many people that have the ability to market these things. That's okay. So our concerns and other health organizations as far as young people and young adults is the nicotine piece of this. Nicotine is found naturally in tobacco plants. It can be a stimulant in small doses. It can also act as a sedative. And the problem is it triggers components in your brain, and especially in young people, your brain is still developing until your mid-20s. So anything you use prior to your mid-20s can actually create an addictive component in your brain as a reaction. Nicotine itself is a highly addictive substance, and it's as addictive as cocaine or heroin. And for that reason, this is one reason we're sharing the information, is because a lot of these products have exceptionally high amounts of nicotine. So again, this is just to show you the comparisons of nicotine content in common products. The traditional cigarette, an electronic cigarette, and then the bottle of e-juice. But again, one thing that we found out is the e-salts, or the nicotine salts, are the strongest thing out there. They're up to as much as 50 milligrams of nicotine. So for comparison, a typical smoker, it might take them 10 puffs to go through a cigarette. They may or may not light another cigarette, so it takes about 5 minutes. And in the cigarettes sold in this country, there are 20 cigarettes to a pack. So that's the equivalent, if you smoke a pack a day, it's 20 cigarettes or 200 nicotine hits. And then it compares to the snuff dipper, just to show you how many packs that equates to per week. The Juul pod, which is this popular device that's out there now, one of their flavor pods, which is very small, contains 200 puffs approximately, so about a pack of cigarettes per pod that the Juul company has provided. So again, the effects on your brain, it's increasing the neurotransmitter dopamine. Well, dopamine is the pleasure center in your brain. So when you're doing something fun, having good food, hanging out with friends, anything like that, that fun sensation or the good feeling you get, nicotine triggers that part of the brain. That's why it's a problem for people sometimes, because they want to feel that way again. So they tend to use more nicotine. As you use more nicotine, you build up your tolerance, and then you require more to get the same feeling or a better feeling. And that's when the addictive component sets in. So this slide's hard to read, but what we wanted to indicate is when you're taking in nicotine, whether it's in the form of a cigarette, snuff, dip, chew, or using a vaping device, the time it takes to travel through your system and hit your brain is 10 to 20 seconds. So it's a very quick delivery system. And with the old-fashioned traditional cigarettes, it's about 10 seconds. And that's why people are so addicted to combustible cigarettes, because the reaction in their brain is so quick. And it's still the best delivery system of a drug, is traditional combustible cigarette use. So again, thinking, the 10 to 20 seconds, it's traveled through your entire system that quickly. So we had discussed this earlier. Your brain continues to develop until about the age of 25. It's the last organ in everyone's body that fully develops. Your lungs are also developing into your early 20s. So because nicotine is such a strong drug and such a strong chemical, it can disrupt the growth of someone's brain when they're at a young age. And adolescent brains are uniquely susceptible to this form of addiction and reaction chemically. Back in 2015, the CDC did a study of a lot of the products that are sold at convenience stores and other places that are easy for younger people to buy them. And 99% of the e-cigarette devices and the e-liquids sold at convenience stores and supermarkets contain nicotine, even if they stated on the labels that they did not contain nicotine. This is just as use of e-cigarette devices has increased by youth. These are some campaigns that the CDC has done for awareness. This is a study through the National Institute of Health, and this was for 8th, 10th, and 12th graders. And the question was posed to them, how many chemicals do you think are in the flavorings that are vaped by you or your fellow students? And obviously the 8th graders, over 70% thought it was just water vapor and just flavor, that no other chemicals were involved in the process or in the e-liquids. Decreased a little bit more in 10th grade, and then in 12th grade you still had over 50% of the youth that were surveyed thought that it was only water vapor and only a flavoring, that there were no other chemicals in the e-liquids. So for the 4th straight year, the CDC, Centers for Disease Control, has come to realize that e-cigarettes are the most commonly used tobacco product among youth. So then in this country what's happening is youth that start off experimenting or trying e-cigarettes are more likely to use regular cigarettes too. And right now there's a higher incidence or a higher rate of young people using e-cigarettes than adult use. Again, that's just a graphic to show that over 2 million high school, middle school students reported using e-cigarettes, and this is only once in the last 30 days. They're not saying that they use them constantly. It's just that they had tried an e-cigarette or vaping device once in the last 30 days prior to the survey. This graphic is something too that public health agencies are following closely, because what's happening is when kids experiment with these flavored products at a younger age, as they get older, it's interesting that at the college level it's looked upon as more of a kid thing to do now, that vaping is something you do when you're younger, and then they switch back to traditional cigarettes when they're in college or in that age group. What has happened is that there's the overlapping circles indicate dual use, so that means that they're using 2 different nicotine-based products at the same time. For example, they may use a vaping device in a location where traditional cigarette smoking is not allowed, because it's easier to hide a vaping device and it's easier to use it real quickly than it is to light up a traditional cigarette in an enclosed indoor environment. So some people are using traditional cigarettes in their car or outside or at home, and then switching to vaping devices in places where smoking is not allowed. So they're actually getting even more nicotine than they would if they had opted for just one product or one device. So in New Hampshire, we have something across the country. There's a survey called the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, and I believe Raymond's done it for quite a few years. And it's offered every couple of years, and it tracks a bunch of different health-related factors. It's not just about tobacco and not just about cigarettes. It's about anything that can impact a young person emotionally, physically, and health-wise. So there's a lot of questions on the survey, but what has happened is youth use in New Hampshire, and again, that means once during the last 30 days prior to the survey, is up to almost 24%. The national average is 11.7%. So for whatever reason, and we're not the only state that has a higher number, but we are higher than the national average in this area. The good thing is, if you look at the reverse of that number, that also indicates that 76% of the young people have not vaped. So we need to look at the positive side too. Again, this is information based on the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, but this question differed in that it said not once in the last 30 days, but have you ever used an electronic vaping device? And the answers were yes by 41.1%. That's the purple bar to the far left. Keeping in mind that the language used in the survey didn't say anything about juuling or vaping, or the terminology was a lot different when this survey was done. So we don't know if they would have answered differently if more up-to-date terminology had been used in the survey. Perhaps the results of the survey would have changed. So again, this is the Youth Risk Behavior Survey. You can see that the orange bar graph indicates e-cigarette use, and it's gone up and down over the last few years. And this was done in 2015. and then by grade level it changes. And then the blue bar is traditional tobacco use, meaning like cigarettes and cigars. So again, people have switched. The good news is, across the country, traditional tobacco use has gone down. Youth use is less, but we've seen an increase in vaping across the country. So we're just going to show you a couple of examples of some products so you can just get an idea of the variety that's out there. This is one of the more popular products that's on the market. Juul was launched in 2015, so it's only been out there a couple years. The image on the top is actually a flash drive, and the image below is an actual Juul device, and I have one on the table if you want to look at it after. You know, they're affordable, they're easily stored, they're discreet. You could hold one in your hand while you're giving a talk and no one would really know. Again, you can charge it in about an hour, and that charge will last a full day. With that device, you're not putting liquid into it, you're buying flavor pods which you plug into the end of the device. So again, this product is the one that developed their own trademarked formula, and it's a very strong nicotine. Right now it's one of the strongest things on the market. And again, the Juul pod, the flavor pod, is equivalent to a pack of cigarettes or about 200 puffs. The flavor pods are very small, as is the device, so a lot of people aren't aware of how strong it is. So this is the device itself. It's magnetic, so that's how big it is, and you would plug this into a computer to charge it. So it just looks like a flash drive, so somebody could use it in a library or in an office and you wouldn't know the difference. And then the flavor pod cartridge goes in the top, and again, those are very small. And they come in different flavors and they're self-contained. We haven't opened these just because there's potential for the e-liquid to actually leak, so we haven't plugged them in because we want to be able to show them to people. But you can look at it after if you'd like. So they started with 5 flavors originally, and then in February of this year they added 3 specialty flavors because they found out how popular their device was. There are a lot of knockoff companies now, or companies that are making knockoff products because of the popularity of Juul. People have picked up on it, and like anything that's popular in the market, there's other companies taking advantage of someone else's product. So to give you an idea how this has taken off, in the last quarter of 2016, this company had 25% share of the market. And as recently as June of this year, they were up to 72% of the market. So that's how much this product has flourished and how much in demand it is. It's more popular than all the vaping devices that are created by big tobacco companies combined. And again, this is a product that was originally created by 2 Stanford graduates for their thesis, and they were trying to find a way to help people quit smoking. So again, it reminds you of the Chinese pharmacist trying to help his father. This was supposed to be another tool to help people quit smoking combustible products. Again, just the Juul accessories or things that come up as byproducts of something that's popular. These are called wraps or skins. Kind of like what you can do with a cell phone or a laptop. You can personalize it, make it more your own style. The center image is actually the Boston Celtics logo, and then the one on the right is one that reflects light, so it sends off. Depending the type of lighting you're in, it will just reflect different colors. Again, other accessories. I mean, you see a lot of people that have lanyards that have the IDs for where they work or something, or they put their flashlight on a lanyard, so that's kind of a common thing. The item in the middle, if you notice, they changed the spelling slightly. It's not a Juul product, but it's a knockoff, and it's Jull. It's a charger that's supposed to be compatible to the Juul. And then on the right is a book. It's Book, and it's actually a leather case that you can put the Juul device and the flavor pods in to carry it with you. So the Sorin product is another device. We were actually made aware of this one back in March. We had a young person attending a presentation we did at our office, and she came up and spoke with myself and my colleague after our presentation and said, "We don't have Juul at our school, but we have something that's more popular." that you should know about? And she said, look up Soren, and we did. And it's a very small device as well. Comes in a gift box. This is one here. So again, the difference being with this is refillable. So the user actually has to be able to, you just take the top off, which is simple. Now I thought you'd fill this end, and you don't. This is where the battery and the charging part is. You have to get the e-juice or the e-liquid into this. And when you look at the size of the containers of e-juice that we have on the table, you're trying to pour this into this small space. So that's where the accidental exposures come in. That's where you hear about people getting irritation on their skin, or little kids getting sick, or pets getting sick. It's because somebody's trying to refill something this small and accidentally spills it and doesn't necessarily wipe it all up, or gets it on themselves and gets irritated skin or a reaction. So again, Soren has the other rectangular shaped device, which is the Soren Air. These are all rechargeable products. And then you have the Soren Vagon on the left, and then Soren did kind of a knockoff on the iPhone and came up with the Soren iShare, and they promote it as being, if you're going to an event or a party and you have friends that want to try vaping and they don't have their own device, instead of sharing yours, because another issue that's coming around is sharing of these devices because people don't clean the mouthpieces off. This one you can charge 2 devices at one time, so you can easily have your own device and then share the other one that's charged. So one example, and again there are thousands of e-liquids out there, but one example of one company is this, and again it's a nicotine salt, so it comes in a smaller container because it's stronger. It's called Blow Sauce, and they were, I guess, creative enough that there's a program out there that's been around for years called Box Top for Education, and they have a pink logo. Well, this company came up with sauce tops, not for education, but just sauce tops, and they mimicked the Box Tops for Education coupon. So there's a coupon, the image is on the far right, and as you purchase these products, you can collect coupons and then turn them in toward your next purchase. Again, this is just to show you some of the varieties of products, and again, based on the popularity of Juul, all these other things started to develop after 2016. This particular company sells different strengths of nicotine, and that's the milligram designations on the bottom. This is a type of vaping device. It's not a medical or asthma inhaler, but it was designed specifically to look like a medical inhaler, and it actually says that on their website. This device does not use e-liquids or e-juice. It heats up an herb or extract. It goes for anywhere from $89 up to about $169. They have 3 different levels of device. The unfortunate thing is it could be mistaken for a medical inhaler quite easily. So if you saw something like that fall out of somebody's gym bag at a school event, you wouldn't necessarily think twice of it. We think probably because of the price point of this one, it's not as popular, and also it's a little bit bigger. But again, it's being promoted as being discreet because it looks like a medical inhaler. These are just other vaping devices. Candy Pens is a line of products, and again, it's just to show you some of the size and variety that's out there. And then these are newer products that came out within the last few months, and they're all rechargeable. They're not ones you throw away, other than the one in the lower left, Stig. That one is something that's sold in a 3-pack, and that image is one that says Lush Ice. So that's a different type. We haven't seen these around here yet. The center one up top is Fix, P-H-I-X, and that was, for whatever reason, the popular product in Connecticut for students in the end of this past school year. So some people in public health, not us, but another group, were alerted to that because they think sometimes things travel up through New England in popularity, but we haven't seen or heard of that being that common around here. And then the one in the lower right is Teros, and that's something it's popular again. not something that necessarily an adult trying to quit would want, but that one lights up and changes color as the heating coil changes temperature. So again, something we like to make young people aware of, that they may be underage and they may not be of legal age to purchase these products, but they're definitely on the receiving end a lot of the ad campaigns and the promotion that are out there, not only in the images but also in the colors and the type of campaigns and where the campaigns appear. Depending on Facebook and things promoted through social media, these ads pop up whether the young person has purchased an item or not. These are, again, this is just an alert and awareness because of the scariness of the whole concept of this. A lot of the flavorings that are out there are mimicking existing food products that we consume. The black square indicates the original product, and the red square indicates the knockoff e-liquid. So you have something that looks like Reddi-wip, something that looks like and is packaged like Nilla wafers, and then something that looks like an apple juice, and we actually have that one on the table up here next to a container of traditional apple juice. So again, this is when somebody younger, not necessarily a toddler, but somebody 5 or 6, isn't going to necessarily read everything on the packaging, and if it looks like Reddi-wip or smells like Reddi-wip, they may try it. And although the containers have child-resistant packaging, as one pediatrician said, nothing is entirely child-proof when it comes to packaging. Again, these are just to show you the liquids. We bought a couple samples, so to me the Candy Treats one, that reminded me of like cake decorations or cupcake when you're decorating frosting. And I mean, you have to read really closely what's on the packaging, and this was prior to the nicotine warning labels that were required as of August 10th. And again, based on the thousands of products out there and what was already on the shelves in different shops, we're not sure if that's even being followed nationally, just because there's so many different products and companies out there. These are just to give you an idea of other flavors that are knockoffs on traditional products that some of us grew up with, Max Loops and Fruit Loops, and then the Swedish fish looks like a product we knew, and they call it Max Fish. This is just a flavor chart or flavor list from one of the websites. The reason we use this as an example is because in the corner it says we can create a flavor and customize one for you, basically, if you don't see one that you like already listed. So that's where you get into there being 15,000 flavors. It may be something like there's chocolate, there's coffee, somebody created mocha, but then somebody said mocha hazelnut. So that's why there's so many layers of flavors, because people are adding just a little touch to make it different. This is just to indicate some of the social media messages that are out there, and this was posted by a vape shop in the Manchester area. So they targeted UNH and Southern New Hampshire University, which are campuses nearby, and just the messaging that they use. And again, it's not just vape shops. A lot of people do this with just tagging different terminology, target audiences. So it just is a way to kind of advertise at a low cost. We were told about this series of products. It's spelled correctly. It's a line of clothing and other items and accessories to help conceal the use of the products. The drawstring actually is something you can replace the drawstring in a traditional hooded sweatshirt with that drawstring and attach a vaping device to one end of it. Or if you buy and purchase their sweatshirt, the vaping device there's a pocket that they've sewn into the inside, so you can put a smaller device in that and then run the tubing through the sweatshirt. And then on the right-hand side, people that do a lot of biking or hiking, camelbacks, those were popular a few years ago as hydration systems. This company has kind of done something similar, but it's all for vaping, and it has pockets for not only liquids, but for vaping devices, and again, running the different draw cords through the merchandise or through the pack so that you can discreetly vape. And it suggests that you use that at concerts and outdoor events, but a lot of concerts now don't allow you to bring bags in, so it's probably another good reason. So this is just showing you how different growth in these products in the industry has changed, and then how many marketing dollars have been devoted to it over time once it became popular. And again, I don't know if they can really measure the true sales projection in 2018 by the end of the year. That's just a number they projected based on prior year sales. But again, you're not sure because there's so many companies that have this stuff, and there's not licenses that specify what you're selling or who you're selling to, and there's no tracking of internet sales other than by the companies people purchase from. So that just indicates, the green bar graph indicates money spent, dollars spent on marketing, and then the orange bar graph indicates youth use over time. So of course, as dollars increased, use increased. And then just advertising, we know that in the past there were regulations put on where traditional cigarettes could be promoted and advertised. Well, those same regulations don't apply to these products right now, so you do see them in different movies, TV shows, late night TV. You see them advertised and promoted before movies, or you may even see them in a movie that you go to the theater to see. So we work with Dr. Tansky at times on different projects that we have, and these were just things that she noted. She's a practicing pediatrician, and she said, again, to keep in mind for young people, young adults, that your body's still developing, and the mix of flavorings and chemicals are a concern because there is no consistency. And then the heating elements are all different, the variety of temperatures and the variety of devices. For the larger tank and mod systems, you're inhaling more. And for the smaller devices, you're inhaling less, but you could use nicotine salts in the smaller devices. So again, it's a lot of variables, so it's hard to say how much and the long-term health impact because of all these variables. And again, that's just repeating. And then what she wanted to point out too, NRT, which is nicotine replacement therapy, those are the approved ways to quit, whether it's patches, lozenges. There's a variety of things that are approved by the FDA, and you should also work with your physician too. It's very difficult to quit, and if somebody takes a few times, that's not unusual. So if people are trying to quit and they're having trouble, that's quite common. You're not going to necessarily quit overnight, and anyone that quits cold turkey, that's great for them, but it's very hard to do. And it's, again, because you've been using a product that made your brain be addicted to it. So that's a summary of the public health concerns. And then one thing to keep in mind is smoking is still the leading cause of preventable death in the U.S. And that means that just smoking in general still causes more deaths in this country than any other illness. And it may not be apparent right away, but it's a long process for some people, and you gradually become more and more ill. And then you have other comorbidities or illnesses that also are a sideline or a side impact of smoking. So it's still an issue in this country, even though our smoking rates have gone down. So for youth and for public places in New Hampshire, one thing that comes into play for public schools is there's an RSA that we've had in existence for a few years. And these products and all tobacco products are not allowed on school grounds. It doesn't matter what age you are. I had to get permission to bring this stuff into the school for this. So no matter what it is, whether it's cigars, cigarettes, snuff, dip, snus, e-cigarettes, e-liquids, none of that stuff should be on school grounds in a public school facility. And then the other thing that happened is HB 1541, which was the legislation we mentioned that prevents the sale of e-cigarettes to minors in the state of New Hampshire. So anybody under 18 shouldn't be purchasing it. Oh, sorry, you don't have to go back. But the bottom bullet on that slide was that the vape shops here in New Hampshire, they just need a general business license. There is no special license. So if you see some of the vape shops that look more like social clubs and they have furniture and couches and stuff and people hang out, sometimes they offer flavor samples, which is also not allowed. But you got to keep in mind too, people sometimes walk in there and they don't have a mouthpiece that necessarily fits the device that they're using. So you would hope that all this stuff is cleaned off thoroughly in these shops where they're giving people flavor samples. But there isn't really any health inspection, and again, it's just a general business license. Anyone in here could open a vape shop. It's not a tobacco license, and it's not a license like you purchase to sell cigarettes. It's a whole separate, just general business license. And that's just the signing of the bill a few years ago. And then again, similar to tobacco products years ago, this stuff is heavily marketed to young people. It's quite available. I think I saw an Irving gas station down the road the other direction. That's actually a place where some of these products can be purchased, as well as just Market Basket in Hannaford. The disposable e-cigarettes, which we have one up there, it just looks like a dark black pen. That's called Blue, and that comes in a 2-pack for like $9.99. So again, some of these price points are not prohibitive to younger people purchasing them, or people that don't have a lot of disposable income. It's still affordable to them. So the big thing out of this is just, this is an American Academy of Pediatrics graphic. Again, this is old. It says 7,700 flavors. That's how much this has changed in a few years. But the big thing on this is the circle on the right. Less than half a teaspoon of these e-liquids could be fatal to a toddler, and they classify a toddler as 50 pounds or less. So again, remembering the packaging and how it looks like a lot of other edible products, and the fact that some of the caps are not necessarily child resistant to the point where a child can sometimes open it. It's just, you know, something to be aware of. Just keep this stuff locked up or bottle, you know, put it away so that a younger person or a pet doesn't have access to it, because it can be mistaken. Again, it smells sweet, so they think it's something else. They don't think it's going to be a harmful substance. This is a program. It's actually been piloted here in Raymond, the Catch My Breath curriculum. We were fortunate. Raymond gave us the okay to have a teacher in the 7th grade health class pilot this program last school year. So the Catch My Breath Foundation created 4 lessons for schools, grades 6 through 12. And right now they're offering this nationwide at no cost. And Raymond tried it out last year and let us know what they thought of it. So now we're working with the Catch program to also promote this as an in-school curriculum in addition to presentations like this. And these are just a couple other programs that I mentioned earlier that we offer, tobacco prevention programs. And you can just keep, yeah. So I want to give you time to ask questions. And then also, if you did the survey initially, if you could fill out the back. And you can look at some of the products and the e-liquids if you like. And I appreciate everyone's time. Thanks for coming over tonight. And thank you for hosting us.
Yeah. Like I say, it really makes me glad how they market things to
Yeah.
young people so they can look in their customers for the next,
That's where it's similar
60 years
to
or so.
tobacco or combustible cigarettes. Yeah.
Any specific questions you'd like to ask, or?
I've got a question.
Sure.
So you've got to be 18, so they try to make it age specific. So anyone under 18, what sort of avenues are they going around and under to circumvent the laws?
Purchase.
To purchase, yes.
A couple of things happen. You're a young person, may not be the purchaser, but whose kids are here?
Ours.
Okay, you can talk to them about what I'm going to say further. Because I want to explain something, but I want them to be able to ask you questions. The products, for example, are in the Irving gas station, especially the Juul.
Mm-hmm.
So it's up to the salespeople at the gas station or convenience stores to check IDs.
Okay.
So similar to alcohol, the checking of IDs isn't done, so that's one issue. The other thing is we, as adults, tend to give sons, daughters, nieces, nephews gift cards, like Visa gift cards. kids are taking Visa gift cards and shopping online. And even though these websites say, are you 21 or are you 18, usually all you're doing is clicking on the button and plugging in a birth date. There's really not a lot of detailed checking to validate that the person is of legal age. So that's another place.
That was my next question.
And then,
Yeah.
yeah. But the FDA also alerted eBay, and eBay in particular, a few months ago, that products were showing up on their site, and eBay said they'd take them down. If you, on your phone even, just hit eBay and then type vaping products, tons of stuff comes up. So they can't even keep up with it and get the post down, because people are posting stuff. And then Amazon's the same way. The other thing that's happened, or has happened, is somebody in the household is of legal age, and somebody younger borrows or takes the device when the other person isn't aware of it, and may take it to a party or take it to school or take it wherever. Because the other thing that's happened, we've had schools confiscate devices here in New Hampshire and other states. The parents call and say they want it back because they bought it for their son or daughter, not realizing necessarily age restrictions or the fact that it was illegal to have on school property. And I can let Superintendent McCoy speak to, if, I don't know, this school year, if you've encountered any products.
A little. We've had kids that have bought it online and had it sent to someone else's house, or
Yeah.
just gotten it from some other way.
So,
Friends that might be 18 or
so
something.
once you have a student who's been caught, so to speak, do they say, I didn't realize it was this bad? Do they understand what they're doing? Or are they just,
Yeah, well, that's, I think it varies by the individual, but that's one of the reasons why we've had Kim come into our middle school, you know, and high school staff to educate them, and we're hoping to work with Raymond Coalition for Youth to get some of their young people to come and work with our, you know, young people, because sometimes, just sometimes, they like to listen to, you know, their peers,
Peer-to-peer
you know, a little bit more.
versus,
To educate them, and it is integrated into our health curriculum. But one of the reasons I wanted Kim to come here tonight, I don't think people in general realize the dangers of vaping, you know. I think that some kids think it's just like flavored, you know, just like a flavored thing, it's no big deal. And so we're working to educate them. At this point, it's treated the same as if you had cigarettes in school. But we do have a student assistance program kind of counselor, so that we can refer that kid to talk to her about, you know, vaping or whatever substance abuse it is. And sometimes if a student is suspended for X number of days, we might give them less days if they'll agree to meet with her to be educated more about, you know, these types of issues. So we're trying to hit it different ways, but it's hard to say. I don't know that they all really realize, you know, the real danger, the long-term danger of getting, you know, addicted to nicotine and you know, the lifelong impact of that.
I know the other thing that comes up when parents are asked, you know, a young person, they say to their parent, well, you know, it's grape slush, or it's this flavor, it's that flavor. One thing that we want people to keep in mind is even if it's an approved FDA flavor, chemical flavor that is used in food, it's food products, it's approved for consumption in an edible form by the FDA. It's not necessarily approved to be heated up, combined with other chemicals and inhaled. So that's the big difference. When they say bubble gum or watermelon or cotton candy, it's in the gum, or it's in the cotton candy, or it's in the candy bar. It's not a chemical that's being combined with other chemicals, including nicotine, heated up at a variety of temperatures and inhaled in a variety of levels. So that's the big thing, and that's why long-term effects and impact we're just not sure of, because you can't study all these devices and all the different size of people using them, and all the different nicotines and all the different e-juices. There's so many variables. You can't give somebody a concrete health study and say in 5 years you're going to have respiratory illness because of vaping, you know, for a year. It's just right now we don't know. But I don't use the word safe with these devices just because I think there's too many unknowns. I would say potentially less harmful than combustible cigarettes from what we know now, but I don't want to make any guarantees long term for someone's health.
But they can use marijuana supplement too, can't they?
The oil, yep. And now that Puffit one, when it says herb extracts, that's, you know, if you go on that website for Puffit, they're indicating that it's a,
So they could be thinking that they're just getting flavor stuff and when they could actually be inhaling something more.
Yeah, you don't know too, when you're sharing devices, kind of like way back when you shared other things. It's just now there's even more chemical combinations and it's more available because of the internet and shops, and it's not as, when I was in high school, things were taboo, but not, as many things. You had kind of a narrower window of what you could get in trouble for as far as chemicals or substances, and now it's just, there's all different things, and you are correct. They do use the oils. They take apart some of these devices and do the dripping thing where they're putting other substances or oil on them, whether it be a derivative of a marijuana plant or something else. But again, that's what's scary. It's because of all the variety. And, when kids share stuff, one young person could really think that all they got was a flavoring and then hand it off to somebody to try. They just, it's not that they're trying to get away with anything. Its perception right now is that this stuff is not harmful and that it's water, vapor, and flavoring only. And that's the perception we're trying to change, just to let people know that there's more than one chemical in this stuff.
Scary.
So there's some information up here, and I can you go back to the beginning for that
Sure.
slide? Somebody had asked about the,
Do
you want to take a picture of it? Is that,
I'm just gonna write down the titles of these.
okay, I was gonna say we could take a picture of the slide.
Something very odd about this, the way this works. I'll get there.
Eventually we'll back up.
It's like, let me see,
I think it was the third or fourth slide in, or
I would
third in.
think that I would be able to like scroll up. Scroll.
I don't have them written down.
Trying to figure it out.
It's that
This one?
4, I think 1, 2, 3,
CVS.
or 5.
Next one over.
Up to the
Oh,
right.
one
Yep.
video.
Yeah. Can you, do you want to take a picture of it, or? Again, the one on the left is the Still Blowing Smoke California Public Health Organization, their coalition with youth. And then the ones on the right are the newly released FDA short YouTube things, and there's like 7 or 8 of the FDA ones, and the longest one is 31 seconds, so that's a good thing as far as keeping people's attention.
We have the one on the left on the Raymond Coalition's. If you go onto our website and you go into our community resources, there's a drugs one-on-one section, and then you go to tobacco, and we have all sorts of vaping stuff.
Bless
We
you.
don't have this new one that came out.
That just
Came
I
out.
just
We don't have
added
that
it.
one up. It'll probably be going up tomorrow. So
And again, it's been in the news that the FDA, the commissioner and the higher up people in the FDA are not going after these companies for selling to adults. They're just saying you've got to stop, promoting to young people under 18, because we don't want, in another 30 or 40 years, a whole nother generation, instead of being tobacco free, they're going to be hooked on nicotine. They may be traditional tobacco free, but this just, so that's the awareness piece. There's a couple brochures up here, but this one is good to share, just parents and kids, just some general information. And then the Surgeon General has a section of the website that's specific to vaping, and there's some handouts there, but you can log on to the U.S. Surgeon General. And it's e-cigarettes use among youth is the title of that, but they have some interactive questions and stuff that are good, because sometimes you can just let kids do their own kind of research and click on the different information. So again, I'm happy to hang out and answer a few more questions. Thank you all for your time. Thanks for coming out on a rainy evening.
Thank you.
And we appreciate the school hosting us, and thanks to Kathy and the coalition.
Thank you.
And if you were able to do the survey, we appreciate it. I don't know if you guys want this. Is that this one? See this?
I'll set with your surveys, and I will take them.
Do you want one of these too? Yes, we're all good. Thank you for coming. Thank you guys.
Thank you. Thanks for coming, guys.
This is maddening.
I know, it's,
It just makes me so mad.